dog breeder is to be sentenced today for being in charge of a dog which is dangerously out of control. Margaret Peacock faces charges after a woman was mauled by her dog. Of course, most dogs are not dangerous and they're our beloved companions. They're man's best friend, aren't they? But cases like this remind us of the importance of dog awareness and training. Well, I can speak now, I'm delighted to say, with dog trainer Annie Levy, who joins us in the studio. Annie, there just seems to have been a terrible spate of these incidents with dogs. We saw the one with the little girl who was killed only this week. Is something changing with dogs, or is it people aren't looking after them properly? What do you think?
I think it's a combination of factors. The main thing we're seeing is that there are a huge number of dogs now being owned by people who didn't have dogs pre-pandemic. So there's been an increase of, I think, 2 million, even more probably.
Really?
2 million more homes now have a dog in them. And that means that there's lots of people who don't necessarily have the time, they don't have the finances, and those dogs aren't being trained, they're not being cared for properly. And then that's leading to incidences like this, unfortunately.
So I live in North London and I often go for a walk on Hampstead Heath, which is a huge, great green open space, and you sometimes see dog walkers, they've got 6, 7, 8 dogs on leads. Is that too many?
Definitely, yes. And there are laws in place to stop that from happening.
But it varies, I think, from local authority area to local authority area.
Yeah, absolutely. I think most places, they limit it to about 4 dogs per walker.
Do you think that's too many, possibly?
Depends on the skill of the walker.
Right.
There's lots of people I know who can competently handle 4 dogs, and there's other people who go out without insurance and licensing. There's a huge range, even amongst dog trainers, there's a huge range in kind of quality and skill set there. And I think that's the key thing, especially when you see these walkers letting their dogs off lead and letting those dogs run up to children when they maybe don't know the temperament of that dog well enough. That's
interesting, because when you talk about how skilled the dog trainer is, so it's not just a question of, I think I'll be a dog walker, and advertising perhaps in the local paper on the internet, and you get 4 dogs. You've got to be trained in this. Yeah, absolutely. And at the moment there is absolutely no legislation there for it. So you could wake up tomorrow morning, call yourself a dog trainer, and go and start charging people to train their dogs. It's really reckless, isn't it?
Yeah, especially with TikTok and Instagram and those types of trainers cropping up and people seeing that advice on the internet and using that to train their dogs.
What's the most important thing about people who are walking dogs? Maybe they've got 2 or 3 dogs. What would you tell them, Annie?
In terms of preventing dog bites, I think the most important thing we can tell people to stop dog bites. I mean, 80% of dog bites are happening in the home. So people out and about walking their dogs, I don't see as a huge issue.
Right.
Ideally, we would have proper recall before letting our dogs off lead, and would ensure we're not letting dogs run up to children and members of the public. In the home, it's a bit more important that we're starting socialisation early. So you've got the critical period of socialisation between 8 and 12 weeks, and that really needs to be where we're focusing our efforts on training dogs, letting them meet people, letting them spend time around children and other dogs.
And what about with little children? Because that harrowing case this week, I think she was 2 or 3, the little girl who died.
4 years old.
4 years old, wasn't she? That's right. How important is it that dogs get to play with children and that they don't see a child as a menace or a threat?
It's really important that dogs spend time around children from a young age. Children are the most likely kind of demographic to be attacked by a dog. And I think that's a huge statistic. It's something like 70% of dog attacks are on people under the age of 9, men in particular. But it's also really important that we are socialising children properly with dogs.